Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Yeah, when I got this question, the question to come here and talk today, I called the media and the brand people at Ericsson saying, it's a wide audience, what on earth do you want me to talk about? And the response was this. Apparently, according to the intelligence services, you are very keen on 5G and you want to know how it's going to spur your innovation in the different areas that you work in. I'm very happy that you feel like that. I'm not so sure. That's the thing. So I've decided to do something else. I'm going to give you 2 slides where I explain what 5G is, and I'm going to explain it in the way I understand 5G. Then I'm going to give you 20 slides where I actually tell you a little bit about behind the scenes story about how my team and I have been working with influencing 5G to something that I actually think might make sense to you guys. Is that all right? Okay, so notebooks up. These are the things that I want you guys to write down before I leave, because that's what people are going to ask me if I told you. 5G is about bandwidth, higher bandwidth. We can now push much more things through our networks. That's good, right? Latency is lower. Latency is a telecom word for delay. That in between is latency. We shaved it down to very low numbers. We're talking single-digit milliseconds of latency, which is good for a number of use cases, and I'm sure that you guys might be starting to think about what you can do with that. Thirdly, capabilities, and they are greater, and I don't need to explain that, but greater is always better. We know that. Capabilities, though, have to do with what we can actually do in the networks. And that has to do with the next slide, which is my last commercial, corporate slide, which is this. Previous networks have been made with consumer use cases in mind. That's been the main target use case for mobile networks up until now. 5G is the first mobile network that has been designed for both consumers and industry use cases in mind. And that's kind of like an industry, that's another telecom word. It's basically areas that are not telecom. Right, so you guys, you're industries. Yeah. Right, that's the end of the boring corporate message section. I'm now going to talk a little bit about what my team have been doing since 2013 in relation to 5G, and which basically means that we've been engaging with you guys a lot. I'm going to give you 2 examples. In 2013, I got the question from the strategy people at Ericsson saying, we're doing all these new technologies right now, but we have a little problem. We feel that we're missing context. Can you guys look into it? It's a brilliant brief, by the way, to get a brief saying, look into something. I love that. Unfortunately, I shot myself in the foot a week later by going back to the same people saying, we have no idea why we need 5G. That's blasphemy, by the way. You don't do that in our industry. The good news was that they told us to straighten out that question mark. That's an even better brief, I would argue. So what do? Well, we basically scraped everything that the company and the industry was talking about in terms of technology. We then went to people that were thinking about the world, but that weren't telecom people, like the guys at Fabrica, Benetton's research center in Italy. They've gathered lots of brilliant, creative people that are thinking about the future. Thank God, no one comes from the telecom world. So we went there, we explained what the technology was in words that people can understand, and then we worked with them. And we tried to do a little Black Mirror thingy, so we actually didn't ask about what are your dreams. We were saying, right, what do you fear? If we have all this connectivity that is so intelligent, what can go wrong? What don't we want to do? And we came up with some really good and interesting results. This might be the slide that gets me fired, but it's going to be the only slide that you've ever seen depicting a mobile network as a Colombian man in underwear grabbing a man boob. I give you the first incarnation of 5G. Basically, this team, when we worked in this together with them, they depicted the story of an intelligent mobile network as a role play, and they made a movie out of it. So he is basically a network, she's an office worker, and he is a network with connectivity capabilities to IoT, he has machine learning, he has artificial intelligence, so when she gets tired, her health service can call up the mobile network and he rattles her chair, for instance. those kind of things. Needless to say, it's a bit tricky to get back to higher management with this. So we had to do some massaging of the material that we got. And one thing stood out between all the teams that we worked with, and that was that people were thinking that maybe in the future we can do things, we can communicate things that are not necessarily text and picture, but what if we can extend human skills? And that was something that we thought were a bit strange, scary, but we said, right, let's walk with that for a while. And let's find a use case or something that we can actually explore and see whether it makes sense to do something in a mobile network for it. We come up with this. Why on earth would you have a person sitting in an excavator in a dangerous environment? Take Fukushima, the nuclear disaster, for example. Why wouldn't you just drive it over a mobile network? The key question was, can you do it with a mobile network? At the time, we couldn't, and that was a good thing, because that meant that if we do this right, we can provide input to what the next generation mobile networks will be. So as designers, what you do, you start prototyping. So we bought some toy machines, and we basically did everything we could to get what we did out in the world, to see what happened, to get people's reactions, working iteratively. It turned out really quite decently. BBC came around, did a thing about it. And all of a sudden, I was faced with another obstacle in this project. Not only did I have to communicate Colombian men in underwear, I also had to buy a tent for £35,000. Yeah, and if you think Colombian men in underwear is a problem, I can tell you that. That is not part of what our preferred suppliers can do for us. It came with a ground examination, by the way, so that this little baby wouldn't fall through into the parking garage underneath, because someone gave us an excavator. And this is the interesting part. It wasn't a gift, it was a start of a collaboration between us and several industry players. Because they said, right, if you do that with toys, can you do that with real things so we can learn what we can do in the future? And in return, you can understand what you need to do in your mobile networks to make it happen. The end result was actually the mother of all prototypes. An excavator in Sweden being driven over a commercial network from Spain, 2,500 kilometers away. We basically set fire to every base station between Barcelona and Stockholm, but it worked. It wasn't perfect, but that was a good thing, because everything we learned from that, we could bring back into what we actually needed to do with our networks. Now, this was actually a really good thing. So we thought, let's find new sectors, new areas to work with in order to get more ideas around what the network should do. Say hi to UN Habitat. Together with UN Habitat, we had this crazy idea. It's not very crazy, though, to say, what if the world has already told us what we actually need to focus on, like the Sustainable Development Goals? But instead of having them as one of these marketing things that you show up at conferences like this, what if we can start by take urbanization and say, is there something we can do with technology that could help us addressing this issue? Not solving it, but at least play a role in making urbanization slightly less complicated than it is today. The thing with urbanization is this. As cities grow, there is a lot of information, looking like this. The problem is that the stakeholders ranges from this woman, looking at that very blueprint, to urban planners, city architects, whatever, all that range in between that woman and the experts, looking at the same material, but they see different things. They don't understand the same things, they don't have the same language, they don't have the same tools. Our question was, is there anything that we can do with modern technology to address this somehow? What if we can take the two-dimensional blueprint, for instance, and make it into something that you can actually experience? Take the blueprint from the conference room out in the street and actually have people look at it at a real building in the place where it's supposed to, where it's proposed to be built. The key thing here was, can we do this with current technologies? The answer was no. So that was the thing. Can we do that with 5G? Probably, if we do certain things right in 5G. So what did we do then? Well, we teamed up with UN Habitat, the city of Johannesburg, and an architecture school in South Africa. And we basically 3D scanned a square in Johannesburg. We turned that square into a Minecraft model that we then had architecture students redesign on normal PCs or Macs. Basically building things in Minecraft. Minecraft is a good thing, blocky, easy to render on a screen. It looks like sketches, by the way, as well. That's usually where things end. People gather around a sketch on a screen and they communicate and talk. Now, it's still an abstract thing. So what we did was we took the students out, we built a small prototyping system on that square, did a lot of computation of the device, that is to say, in the network, and had them see their buildings or their constructions like that. So what you see here is a screen recording. The grass is real, the pavement is real, the car is real, those kind of pillars are not. Basically allowing the students to walk up to the structures that they just built to see what their creations actually would mean. And the reactions were actually made everything worth the hard work.
Relax, someone. Yo, up. Grass. Grass. Look at the grass. It's grass, man. And then the other side.
We were amazed. We didn't pay them, by the way. But it's actually rather awesome to see that sort of stuff in front of your very eyes. Obviously, you can see the excitement. You can imagine. Yeah, they're very happy. So basically, this was done by a mobile infrastructure as a central key player. That didn't exist, by the way. We faked almost everything just to push the engineers in a certain direction. A couple of months back, this is in Stockholm in Sweden, where we built another small prototype, a gigantic rig on top of a container. And the reason for that was that we wanted a good view over a parking lot that was going to be redeveloped. And we took the Minecraft thingy and we worked together with architects, we worked with city planners to get like proper real BIM models into the equation. And what we get now is something that looks something like this. This is a screen recording. You can see the parking lot. You can see the "All cops are bastards" graffiti as well. There's a parking lot there. And you can get a model of that parking lot. You can see it's up there. You select buildings first. And all of a sudden, we can decide which buildings we want to have on that parking lot. And then as you look up, we have something that looks like that. And the thing is, and it looks like something you've seen on TV, maybe, and you've seen it on keynotes, but doing this in real life, on that scale that we're talking about, is not possible to do with a normal device today. It's so complicated to do. We rely heavily on edge computing, point clouds that are terabytes in size, 6 degrees of freedom positioning of a viewport in real time, done somewhere else within a couple of milliseconds. And that's what we're pushing back into the systems that we're developing right now. So just a bit of a glimpse into what actually went into the idea of doing things for industries. That's what we've been doing for the past 6 years. And hopefully, you guys in your areas will find it useful too. So if you do, please let us know. It would be nice. So thank you so much for your time.